Now, I was very concerned when I started almost 2 years ago now, coming up on 2 years, when I started in Congress, because I knew that 139 members of this body did not vote to certify a free and fair election. Of those 139, 124 ran for re-election, and 118 are still serving in Congress, who serve with us in committees, who we have to see on the floor, people who did not support the free and fair election and the peaceful transfer of power. This sickens me. In moments when I am home in Vermont, it's very difficult to convey to my constituents what it feels like sometimes to be here as a public servant, supporting the democracy, supporting the ideals that supposedly we all hold so dear, and to serve alongside people who still will not admit that Joe Biden is the rightful winner of the 2020 election. It should outrage all of us. How can we make the case to our children, to my former students, that democracy is something to protect, that's something that is sacred, that we all have a stake in making sure it is healthy, when there are members of Congress who still will not admit that Joe Biden is the rightful winner of the 2020 election? We must commit, all of us, to rising above this dangerous nonsense, because we all know the truth. We do. We know the truth. And as we head into another election season, I know what I fear. I fear that once again, we will be faced with a critical moment of courage, and that some will fail that test.
I'd like to yield to the gentlewoman from Vermont, Congresswoman Balint.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Ramirez. It is an honor to serve with you and to speak here tonight about an issue that is incredibly important to me, and that is the health and strength of the democracy. When I ran for Congress, the issue I heard the most about was just that, the health and the strength of the democracy. Yes, of course, Vermonters cared about particular issues to our district, housing, workforce crisis, the mental health crisis, all of these things, but they said more than anything, I'm worried about the health of the democracy. And I came to the job having come up through the Vermont State Senate, and before that I was a teacher and tried to instill in my students the importance of being involved in the democracy, to keep replenishing it with the energy and the attention it requires. And what I've noticed over the last few years, there is indeed a cynicism creeping in, as my colleague mentioned earlier. And cynicism has a corrosive effect, not just on the democracy, but on our own health and stability and the health of our communities. But it is, in fact, the voice of the status quo. It is about convincing people that you can't actually make change, so why even try? That it's futile. And the stakes are so incredibly high. I will tell you, my family knows firsthand that democracies don't fail overnight. My grandfather was killed in the Holocaust, and I grew up with the understanding that people can be horribly cruel to one another and can perpetuate horrors upon individuals and families when the law does not protect the most vulnerable, and when people turn away from each other and demonize each other. And I can tell you, in earnest, we have seen this in this country in the last few years. Has grown to a fever pitch of dehumanizing and demonizing our fellow Americans. And I see it in my committees, whether it is attacking immigrants or migrants, or attacking the LGBTQ community, or attacking the poor. It is not about coming together as an American and finding common cause with other Americans. It's often about making people the scapegoats. And democracies fail little by little as our rights are stripped away from us, as democratic norms are upended, as people are scapegoated. And my parents never took for granted the rights and privileges provided to us by the U.S. Constitution, and that we must be vigilant and take our responsibility of supporting and protecting the Constitution seriously. So when I heard that the topic tonight was about strengthening the democracy, I said, absolutely, I will be there. Because none of these things, strengthening our voting rights, improving our representation, making sure that we have campaign finance reform, and on, and supporting our communities, nothing can happen if we do not have a commitment to the people in this chamber to admit the rightful winner of an election and to stand in this chamber and certify those election results. I look forward to seeing some courage, regardless of the outcome. I hope that I am not once again deeply, deeply disappointed and disgusted by the lack of courage and fortitude of those who say that they support the Constitution and the rule of law and this great democracy. I yield back.
Thank you, Congresswoman Balint. Your words could not have been more powerful.